All right, we're back. It's COMP1002, Web and Internet Fundamentals. It's week 5, lesson 5, part 2. I just posted for you guys who are just seeing this remote, for those people who are not here today, I posted lab 3 where you deploy from GitHub to Microsoft Azure. And I said, or your preferred service provider. And the reason why is because some people may choose, for whatever reason, not to use the free services that Microsoft provides and choose your own that you have to pay for, right? But there are other ones out there that are free, and I've kind of given you some steps. There's like 4 steps I want you to take. Basically, it's just what we did in class today. So create a local folder, use either GitHub desktop or your command line tool, whatever you want to use, to push to GitHub, and then from there, deploy from GitHub to Azure, and then submit your link. That's what I want, for this thing that we're doing today. So again, it's lesson 5, part 2 that I want you to push. But you can push anything, and as long as you submit a link to show me that it's working on Azure websites or somewhere else, some of your provider of choice, I'm good to go. Yeah.
In this lab, you have a resubmitted assignment?
You could do that too. You can say, hey, by the way, here's my resubmitted assignment for this lab. As long as you prove to me that it worked, you might be done already, right? Like it could be that simple. It could be something that we're doing in class already, and you've resubmitted it up to azurewebsites.net, and you're good to go. Your lab is done, and you get your marks. Yeah.
Under the lab folder, this is also our assignment.
Assignment 1, yeah. Our assignment 2 that I've just published live, just FYI, right? Yeah. I'm good to go. As long as you show me that you know how to do it, I'm good, right? It's just that's the exercise. The exercise is how do we do that? Yeah.
Now mine and also Misha's also shows that, like, if you type in your URL for your Azure website, it says that we don't have permission to view the directory. Because
most likely you haven't your GitHub. So if my GitHub, remember it's looking at your GitHub pages. So if I go to GitHub, and if I go to my organization that we're talking about, which is, let's go back to here. If I go to Georgian College, and if I look at my repositories, which is lesson 5, right? Notice how on my repositories, my index.html is exposed. It's the first thing that I see. If it's buried inside another folder on GitHub, that's like your folder structure, right? So remember, your index.html has got to be available in the root of your project. And if it's not, then you have no access, because how can it access your project folder, right? It doesn't know what to do. You're telling it what to do, just as if you're targeting or looking at your folder, right? So that's what has to be done. Your index.html has to be exposed, and then you'll have access. Okay, I want to briefly talk about a couple things. One of them is your assignment 3, and then we'll get right into this content stuff. That shouldn't take very long. Okay, so let's go into assignment 3. I've got it up on Blackboard for you guys, right? So if I go into COMP1002, and we'll look at lesson 5. Let's look at assignment 3. I'll be right back. So close the door. So this one is due a couple weeks from now. It's due on. This one is due week 7, right? Week 7, which is a couple weeks out, right? So not next week, but the week after on Thursday, right? That's when this is due. It's worth 10% of your final grade, right? So again, here's what you need to do. So another one is pick an interesting movie poster, and then with enough image resolution to make out all the text, type out all the textual copy from the poster into a code editor. So basically what you're doing is you're recreating the poster for yourself, right? Mark up each part of the resulting document with a variety of HTML sectioning and phrasing elements, whatever you need to put in. Include a few useful hyperlinks to the official movie website and or some reviews. You can choose whatever movie you want, as long as the movie website's live. Don't link to a phantom movie website or some site that's dead. That would be bad, right? One thing I'd also allow, if you're into games a lot and you're not a movie person so much, but you have there might be a trailer to or some kind of ad instead of a movie poster. You want to kind of, let's say you love Fallout. Like I'm a big Fallout 4 fan, right? I can't wait for Fallout 4 to come out in November, right? So we're in 2015, right? As of this recording, and I want to wait for Fallout to come out in November, and I'm looking at that as something cool. So instead of doing a movie, you want to look at a video game, a new video game that's coming out. You want to create a new poster for the video game or movie. You can take the same steps. I would allow that, right? As long as you point to the original trailer or movie site, I'm good, right? So that it kind of It kind of satisfies the requirements of this assignment, right? Add a few images to the page that add a visual appeal to the page, right? Include some inline embedded or external CSS rules. We're going to talk about CSS rules because remember, we're going to hit CSS next week, right? And then this is due the week after on the 7th week, which is your exam week, right? So you've got some time for you to do this. We'll talk about some CSS, how to put that together, and then validate the resulting HTML with your validator to make sure that it's good, right? It says upload the image of the selected movie poster that you use for inspiration and the URL to your HTML5 on a web server to Blackboard, right? So the link itself, right? And the URL for your page will be something like whatever it's going to be for you. It won't be this. It'll be, you know, mymovieposter.azurewebsites.net. Or if you have a custom link, then it'll be like, you know, my, you know, tomsiliopoulos.com, whatever, /movie poster, right? Whatever you want to make, right? Yourname.com /movie poster, if that's what you want to make, right? If you want to take it further, you could add a bunch of other stuff. You could say you can make a microsite with 3 or more pages, so a few pages. So like just like how we have our 5-page site, right? Product, services, and whatever. You could add other pages to your project to add in additional information about the movie. You know, as an example, if you were to go to something like Rotten Tomatoes, right, to get a review, you can maybe point to the review on Rotten Tomatoes for their movie, right? Let's say if I choose something. Let's look at kind of some movies right now. They're in the box office, like The Martian, right? Very popular movie right now. So let's take a look at, and so it's a Matt Damon movie. And if, for example, it says all critics, you could add this page as an example as one of your micro pages, a link to this, or maybe you recreate some of this review info into a review page, right? Just to prove that you can go from one page to the other. So to make it a multi-page site instead of just a single-page site for your movie, right? So you can do some of that. Right? Again, it's just take it further so that way you test yourself, you push yourself to do a little bit more, So when we get to bigger and bigger projects, you've handled a couple things like linking, moving to different pages, images, and so on. It says attempt to render your text to emulate how the text in the movie poster appears. So that means, how do I make my text look the same? Can I go to a place to get my text from somewhere? And one of the most popular things to do is to add in a web font, right? Now we're going to cover that later on. But let's just see this. So if I go to Google Fonts, if I just type Google Fonts in there, you can just go to www.google.com fonts, and there are hundreds of fonts that you can have access to here, right? If you look through here, and with your Google Fonts, what you can do is you can choose one that looks closer to the movie poster. If you're a print person, you might be able to identify the typeface. You might look at it and go, I know that typeface, it's whatever it is, right? It's Open Sans, so as an example. I want to use that one. And then you can target a lot of them that look very similar here. If you scroll down, there's quite a selection of different typefaces. Now, they might look very similar to you, but really, truly, they are very different. And then let's say you choose one, like for example, I want this Ubuntu condensed font. I want to use that one because I'm a Ubuntu fan, right? So I can go in there and click Add to Collection, right? And then if you do that, I can choose to use, right? And it'll give you directions on how to include this new web font into your web page, right? Now I want to use kind of the character sets I want. I want these 2 character sets, let's just say. And then it tells me, here's my link that I include on my website. So this will be included at the top, just underneath your, and here, they give you an example of where to put it in. So here's how to put it in your website. It actually tells you how to do it, right? Your web fonts right here, which is kind of cool and nice and easy for Google, right? And then you can integrate this into your CSS page, right? And we'll talk about how to do that when we do the CSS piece. So you can include your web fonts, whatever it is, Ubuntu condensed, as the main font for some of your page, right? So if you want to make it like the way it is. So to take it further, Google Web Fonts is one way to do it. You can also do Adobe Typekit if you're Adobe fan. There is a leaner way of doing Adobe as well. We'll talk about that in a bit. And also, you can also use some kind of web font that you can grab through Font Squirrel. You can make a web font of your own. And let's just go to, so you, again, I mentioned Adobe. So there's Adobe Edge fonts. You can use this for free. That's another way of doing it. And again, they'll give you like a bunch of fonts that you can use. So Adobe Web Fonts, or Adobe Edge Web Fonts is the way to go. And the other link for that would be, if you're interested, if you're crazy about fonts like I am, right? Then you may want to use Font Squirrel, right? Font Squirrel, to generate your own fonts, right? Through your system fonts. Let's say you have a really cool system font you like, and you want to put that, or you think that matches up with what the movie posters. You want to try and match it up as closely as possible to make it look like that movie poster. As long as you have access to your font, you can upload it to Font Squirrel, and it'll allow you to download a whole package and with instructions on how to install your font on your local machine that you can share with the world, right? So there's a couple good links up here how to do that, and we're going to talk about that later, probably next week or the week after when we come back. Okay, so that's you know, kind of the assignment in a nutshell. Let's take a look at here. Here we go. So that's really it. And then again, it's worth 10% of your final grade. There's some evaluation criteria as normal. Scott's provided for us, right? So that's the assignment. Any questions around this? So again, you just grab a movie poster, or a movie or a game. I'm putting that out there for the gamers out there, right? If you're a Game Boy or Game Girl, right? And then you know, grab something that you want to highlight. It's some kind of you know, poster you want to put together, and you're going to use images and text to put together a mock poster of your favorite movie or game. And that's really what assignment number 3 is all about, and it'll be due 2 weeks from now on the Thursday night before midnight. Okay, so a couple weeks out. Okay, that's assignment 3. That's that one. Let's get into the meat of this one here. And I've got, remember, we've already started off our little project, our index.html, and I want to add in a couple of items here, like maybe some kind of image that we're going to play with today, right? So we're going to grab one from the internet, and I'm going to grab my favorite stuff, right? So you can grab your favorite image. I want you to find an image on the web that is one of your favorite places on earth. Back for Thanksgiving, because it's Thanksgiving weekend this weekend, right? Grab your favorite picture. Maybe you have a picture on your computer, an image on your computer you want to use, right? And I want you to grab that, download it, and put it inside of your assets folder, right? So here's your assets folder under your images folder. So there's in your images subfolder, I want you to put in this image of your favorite place on earth, whatever it is, one of your favorite places. You want maybe a place you haven't visited before, or whatever. So I want you to grab that, all right? So I'm going to find one. One of my favorite places on earth is Sunyo, right? It's actually the Temple of Poseidon in Greece, which I've visited many times, right? And if I was to show you what it looks like, here's some images of what it looks like. It's actually on the top of a mountain, right? And if you don't believe in mystical energies or some kind of crazy, a nexus point of reality on Earth, go there, man. It feels amazing. Especially when there's a sunset or a sunrise. The sun just hits that temple in just the right place, and you sit there and you're like, wow, this is what it was like maybe in the ancient world. It was really kind of cool. So this is one of my favorite places, and like I said, I always try and visit there at least once a while. So I'm going to grab this image here at 1200 by 799. Let's see if I can grab this image. I'm going to save it. Again, I'm just using it as an example image for those people who are watching somewhere away, and I'm not trying to sell this image. It's just for example purposes. I am on YouTube, by the by, right? So let's go to desktop. Let's go to COMP1002 lesson 5, and I'm going to go inside my assets folder, inside my images, and I'm going to save this Cap Sunyon, right? That's what it's called, Cape Sunyon. I'm just going to rename this thing to Sunyon with a lowercase s just to make it nice and friendly, and I'm going to press save. Okay, so I've got this image now in my files, and if I go to my brackets, you should have something similar. I can see it here in my assets. So if I go to images, here's my Sunyo picture, right? And if it shows you here at 57%, right? That's quite big for me, right? I think, now there's a couple things you can do, and I'll tell you some tricks about images and stuff. without really compressing this too much. This is a massive image. This thing is 1200 by 799. It's quite big for me to put up. I mean, it is only 28 kilobytes, which is kind of cool, but it's really big. So if I want to make this 300 by 300, there's a couple ways to do this. One is I could use code. Like I could use HTML to resize this thing and repack it into something around 300 by 300, or maybe it's going to be 400 by 300. So if I look at the pixels, it's like 1200 by 800 approximately, right? So we want to always keep our images that we use on our websites proportional. What does that mean? I don't want it to look skewed. Okay, so let's look and see what that looks like, because that would be bad, right? And I've seen some images of some students in the past where the images are skewed. So I'm going to open this up on my favorite editor. My favorite image editor is Fireworks. You can choose another one, and one of the ones I recommend if you're going to use a favorite editor for yourself. And again, if you're a Photoshop person, you can certainly use Photoshop. You can use Illustrator. Those are Adobe products that cost, like, for students, I think it's like $20 a month or $25 a month for a whole suite of products. But there's some free ones, and one of them is called GIMP. There's some really cool tutorials on how to use GIMP online. It's actually quite simple. It's GIMP 2.8, and it's cross-platform, right? So it'll actually, if you go to download, it's available to Linux, Mac, and Windows, right? So you can download GIMP, right? So if you're someone who doesn't want to spend any money, and you want kind of a cool image editor or whatever, GIMP might be the one for you. Okay, but for me, I like to use Fireworks, Adobe Fireworks, because that's what I'm comfortable with. And you have to use something that you're comfortable with. So I'm going to pull up Adobe Fireworks here, right? And here's Fireworks. It's CS6. Adobe's not supporting Fireworks beyond CS6. They've kind of wrapped some of the functionality into Illustrator and Photoshop. But I find this was a lightweight solution for Adobe at one point. So this is how I'm going to open it up. So I'm going to double click on this image, right? It's going to open up here in Fireworks, right? And if you notice, this is what an image editor looks like. On the right here, you see that I have several layers, right? One of them is the bitmap layer that holds my image, right? And again, this isn't an image editing course, but one thing you should know a little bit of what to do when you're a web developer designer is how do I kind of rescale my image into something that works. Now 1200, if you notice, 1200 by 800 right now is too big. So there's two tips I want you to get from image editing. One, never kill your original image, right? So if you've got a 1200 by 800 image, you might want to use that one day. And it's always easier for me to scale down than scale back up. Scaling back up, you get pixelation, you get all kinds of problems. You don't want those things. You want to be able to scale down. So let's keep this original image afterwards. And just to show you what the real size is, if you notice right now we're looking at around 50%. Let me go to 100% and show you the real size. It's massive for my screen, and you don't want to make it this big. That means it's going to take up the background of my page. If I was going to use this image as the background of my page, it might be okay, right? It's not a perfect image either. If you notice, if you look really closely, there is a little bit of, there's some sharpness issues, some other parts that maybe I wouldn't use this image if I was going to make this one into a real page. But for now, for our purposes, it's okay, right? But I want to rescale this down. There's a couple ways to do this. One is I can just choose whatever I want. So I'm going to choose like 300 by 300. Okay, and I'm going to ask you this. Does this look right? It's skewed, right? It's not the same proportions as it used to be, right? It's actually squished together because it's a different proportion. If I just ballpark it and go 400 by 300, that looks better, but it may not be right. So what's the real way to do it? Well, there's some tools. Every editor has tools to do that. So I'm going to right-click here, and I'm going to go to Transform, and I'm going to scale. I don't want to skew. I want to scale. And I want to scale this down, as an example, a lot smaller. And if you notice my Scale tool, here's my Scale tool, it shows me these control handles on the image. I can actually pull the image down by holding Shift. If I hold Shift, I constrain my image to the same image size, the same ratio. And I can pull it down until I have the image. I'm going to pull this around here. The image at the right proportion. So right now I'm looking at it to go around 400 by 300, let's say. And I'm going to pull it down until it's around, if you notice on the top right corner, I'm getting a readout of what my image size is. And I'm going to get to until I get about 400. So 400 by 266 seems to be around the right size. 400 by 266. So that's one way to do it. I'm going to undo that. Okay, so I'm back to normal. Over here, I could also choose in Fireworks, I can clip this, right, so it's proportional. So this kind of makes it proportional editing down here, this little option. And most image editors have that, right, have this option of keeping things proportional. They kind of link or lock the proportional, so when you rescale something, it stays the same. It doesn't skew an image, because skewed images look really amateurish and unprofessional, right? We don't want to use those on a website, right? If you were to include those in your website, you would lose marks from me. I would look at them and go, it's a skewed image. Something's wrong, right? You got to make this better. So let's move this down to 400. I can just do it this fast way. So 400, and all of a sudden it recalculates it for me. 400 by 266. So most image editors have that capability as well. But what about all this white space here on the side? This is like a bunch of, it looks like check boxes over here, right? Checker pattern, right? This checker pattern, because I'm using fireworks, and most modern editors allow you to do this, I can have a canvas that's larger than my image. So my canvas for my actual file, you know, if I was going to save this as sunyon.jpg, the JPG file, right? My canvas is much larger than my file, my image. My image is really small. And there's ways of course, changing your canvas to match your image, which is what I'm going to do here. I'm going to say modify canvas, and I'm going to say, I'm going to trim my canvas. So I'm going to make it the same size as my image now, right? Some editors also, when you resize the image, the canvas resizes with it, so you don't have that issue, right? Okay, so I've got my smaller image, and right now it's like 400 by 266, right? So I'm going to save this thing inside my assets, and I'm not going to change the original. I'm going to save it as this new size. So I'm going to say File, Save As, and I'm going to change my image. Instead of Sunyo by itself, I'm going to say Sunyo 400 by 266. So I know what it is, right? That's what it is, 400 by 266. I also know the original size, right? If I go back here, is 1200 by 799. I'm not going to change that one though. I'm going to go back. I'm just going to close fireworks. I don't need it anymore. I'm going to go back to this one and rename this one 1200 by 766. So I know which one it is. So 1200 by 766 or 799, I think it was. Sorry. I'll be okay. So that's what the original image size was. And I'm rescaling this down to 400 by 266, which is the one I want. This is the one I want. This is the original. This is the one I want. And notice the difference in size, file size. 29K for the original, 3K, right, for the new one that's resized. Why? Smaller images on the web, because we're talking about images and links today. Smaller images equate to smaller, smaller amount of memory, or that's being or storage sizes. Number one, and the second thing is that from a load time perspective, the larger the image, the longer the load time. If I've got a big, massive, high resolution image on the web, which looks nice, right? It's going to take longer for my website to load up, right? Yeah.
If you did scale down numbers, but mathematically correct for each, would it still be a large image on the web that's just squished down to small?
It depends on how you did it, depending on what editor you use.
Like
But
you didn't use an editor.
oh, if you just use like code, right? Yeah. See, if you don't do this, why am I showing this? That's a good point. Thank you for that. The reason why I'm showing you to resize it in the editor rather than using CSS and rather than using inline adjustments with code to do it is because you're right, it's still going to appear. When you load it up, it's loading the original image size. The original image size is, if it's 1200 by 1200, it's going to load a 1200 by 1200 image. It's massive, right? Or maybe it's going to be 3000 by 2000 or whatever, some massive image. But you're telling it to display at only 300 by 400 or whatever it's going to be. It doesn't matter what you tell it. That's just rescaling it down with code, and it's scaling it down in real time. As the editor is looking at it, as your browser is reading the image, it sees what you're trying to kind of change it to, and it's scaling it right there for you. So not only are you getting a hit from the load time, you're also getting a hit from the rescaling. There's a rescaling calculation that has to happen. So why would we do that? I would never do that. And for me, if I wanted the full-size image, which I want to show, I might want to create thumbnails, a really small image of something else, or maybe a medium image, you know, if I want to show it in an article. And then if I want to see the whole image, if I click onto it, it'll take me to the whole image that I can load later, right, as a strategy. Let's go back in there and let's create a thumbnail now. Let's talk about what a thumbnail is. So I'm going to go back in. I'm just going to double click on Sunyo. Right, I'm going to open up the original, right, in CS and my fireworks here. And I want to create a thumbnail. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to rescale this thing down. I've got them linked. And I want to make this fairly small. A thumbnail typically is something like 100 or anybody 100 by 50, something small that's on the page. That's a representation of the image that if you click on, it'll take you to the real size. All right, as an example. Let's make this like 100 wide. Let's see what happens to our image now. So 100, it's like that big, right? So it's 100 wide. It's a little image of, this would be like a thumbnail. Might be, some people like it, so it's 150. That might be about right too. There's 150. That might be right for a thumbnail too, right? 150. And that's the size of my image. It's a representation of my image, but it's not the whole image. Now I need to trim my canvas again, right? Because I have this whole canvas in here. So I'm going to say modify canvas. I'm going to trim my canvas. And by the way, after I'm done this, I'm going to send this all to GitHub so you can grab my images if you don't know how to do this stuff, right? All right, so I'm going to save this thing. I'm going to file, save as. And instead of naming it as the size it is, like 100 by 150 by 100, I'm just going to call this thumbnail, which is actually it's actually a kind of good practice, best practice thumbnail. So I know this is my thumbnail. Okay, let's correct a couple things. So I'm going to close this off, file. I'm going to quit Fireworks, right? And I'm going to go there and make some adjustments. Are these good names for images? Why is it no? Who said no? I got a space in there, right? I can't have any spaces. I can have a dash or an underline, but I can't have spaces. This won't render properly in the web page. It'll break, right? So I got to change my images so that they're web compatible. So I'm going to rename these things. So instead of Sunyo space, it's going to be Sunyo dash, right? And do the same thing for my thumbnail, Sunyo dash, and then again Sunyo dash. So I've got my thumbnail, and I've got my my regular images, and I got an image I can use on my page. Okay, so I've got some stuff to work with right now. I'm going to save, and just because I'm here, I'm going to go to my terminal. I'm going to do by the terminal way. Actually, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll do the Git tool today because you've been seeing the Git tool. So here, if you notice, it kind of reads that I have all these changes to my assets, images, Sunyo, right? And I'm going to say added image assets. That's the change that I made. That's my commit, right? I'm going to commit and sync to master, right? And once I've done that, it's going to sync everything up there. It's not going to change my Azure because I haven't linked my images to my page yet, right? I haven't done that. So how do I link my images to my page? Let's go back and let's look at my document, right? And I got to figure, this is where my brand is going to be. Let's suppose that my brand is going to be my thumbnail, all right? So I want to put my thumbnail in here as my brand. This is where I want to show my navigation, and on top I'm going to show my brand, which is Sunyo. Maybe I'm called Sunyo Companies Inc. I don't know, whatever, right? But I want to put that as my brand, my thumbnail, all right? Let's see how that looks. So again, I want to kind of put an image tag in there, IMG, and press tab, right? And if you notice, automatically, the things that the image tag has to make the whole image element, right? Remember, what's the difference between an element and a tag? The tag is just the image, the tag name, or the tag keyword, IMG. Then there's the image element is made up of the tag keyword plus the attributes and any kind of content that you're looking to it. All right, so that's the element. So if you notice, my source is, if I kind of put in there, I'm going to target my assets. And if you notice, brackets is kind enough to pull up my folder for assets, and not audio, assets.images. So try that again. And then it shows me a few images I can choose from, right? This is my path in my local folders, right? I'm going to choose my thumbnail, right? So this is my thumbnail. Now, alt text, if my alt attribute allows me to put alternate text for screen readers and for people who can't see this image for whatever reason, right? So I'm going to say Sunyo, if I could type properly. There we go. I've saved it, so I've got my image there, and if I refresh my page, if I try this out live here locally, right, I should see an image of my page, right? Here's my thumbnail at 100, that's what I call my thumbnail, right? And if I was to hover over this thing or click onto it, right, if I go to inspect element, right, right-click inspect element, you can see that on my page, if I go to let's open this up here for a second, right? So here's my header, and inside my header, I have my brand, and my brand I've put in my image, and you can see that it's pulling that image at 150 by 101, right? If that was my thumbnail, if that's what I consider a thumbnail. Some people like to go a little smaller, right? That's fine, so that's my brand. So if I was gonna make my website, maybe my brand would be on the left, then I would have a kind of a toolbar or whatever, right? Okay, so that's how I added my image to my website. It kind of renders this way, right? Okay, cool. Let us do a couple things here. So here's my image, right, as an example. And there's my image. But I want to make it a link. I want to make it a link so when you click onto it, right, it goes to my, the real image. How do I do that? Well, I got to wrap this image in an A tag, right? So I got to put an anchor tag around it for the link. Now we're talking about links and images today. So how do I do that? Well, let's just get a regular anchor tag first. So I'm going to say anchor tag. If I just type A and press dash, I get this, right? My anchor tag. Here's my href, right? Href is the link location, right? So I'm going to do the same thing. I want to say assets, right? Images. That's going to be my location for my A tag, right? Assets, images. Here's something else I want to show you, right? And also, I want to choose my big one, my 1200 by 799. That's interesting. It's taking me to a page. I'm looking at an image, but I'm not loading it as an image. I'm loading it as a page, right? We'll see the difference in a second. Now I'm going to take this whole other link here, this image that I put in here, this image tag, I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to put it in between my anchor tag like this, paste. So what have I done here? So I've taken my anchor tag as a wrapper, right? And it's telling me whenever I click on my image is now a clickable image. That's what I've made, right? Let's try this out and see if it works. So I'm going to kind of go back into my test page. And when it loads up, right? If you notice now my hand, see my cursor changes from a pointer to a hand to indicate that it's a link now. And if I click onto it, it'll take me to the full size, right? So you can always go back, and now I have both the thumbnail and the big picture, right? Now this, if you notice, even though I didn't mention it as a, I can go right to full size here. I didn't mention it as a as an image tag. It generates that website automatically. It's not like I've generated another website. There is no other website. But what's happened is it's most modern web browsers can create almost like a subsite, and it renders as its own page. That's a very common thing. If you actually click on any images that are clickable, unless they go to another specific site, it'll render as its own page. And sometimes what happens is we create our own pages, right? We create our own pages, and we have our images there as image assets, as opposed to remember, there's no styling here. There's no words for this image. Maybe I want to make its own page. This isn't its own page. This page is rendered or created at runtime by the browser. The browser creates this page, right? Okay, let's go back. Now I want to upload this to Azure, right? Like we've been talking about. So how do I do that? I'm going to go back into my desktop, and if you notice, I've updated my index.html, and I'm going to update this. I'm going to say added thumbnail, brand, and link to large image or larger image. There we go, and I'm going to click commit and sync. Okay, so I've committed and synced. It's going to sync up. So I'm sending my image there. I've got my extra little, these are all my commits so far I've made. These are all my snapshots I've made of my work. Each one of these little gray dots is an example of how I've synced up with GitHub online, and it's a new snapshot of my work. Okay, good. So I've got that. Let's check it on Azure to see that it's there, right? Because that would be cool if it was there, right? And let's go to my Azure, which is probably COMP1002, lesson 5, Azure websites.net. You can check it too to see if it works, right? See, I'm going to go there and see what I got. So there it is, right? So automatically, when I upload it to GitHub, my Azure website updated, right? So now if I click, this is up live for you. You can see this anytime you want. If I click this now, I see a larger image like I normally would, but it's live worldwide. You can see this anywhere in the world because I'm live. Difference between local development and live production, okay? So that's really images in a nutshell, like what I just did there. So again, there's two pieces there. I've made a clickable image, right? First, I made the regular image by using the img tag. And then I wrapped an anchor tag around it, which provides a location of the larger image, or you can also put in there another page to link to. For example, you click on this and you create your own custom page for the image to hold the image and to create a whole other page around it, right? And it'll take you to that image. It'll take you to that other page, that anchor tag. All right, so that's really in a nutshell. Let's just take a look really briefly at the PowerPoint just to highlight those things, right? There's 2 PowerPoints I've got. PowerPoint 1, which is all about images, right? So if you want to, again, this is for future reading. We've pretty much done images, right? That's all it takes, right? So again, and I've also talked about editing. There's 3 types of very popular images out there that we use, image formats. There's GIF. Again, it's kind of been, we don't use GIF images too much. And also, please avoid using GIF animations for the most part in your pages. That's very passé. And when you look at it, if you see GIF animations, you want to use them very sparingly if you use them at all, right? Ping images, that's what they're called, PNGs, or ping is how we say it, right? Ping images are used because they also have a transparency layer around them. So if I want to make an image like a logo, and I want to see the background color in my website, I'm going to use a ping image a lot of times because it has a transparency layer, an alpha channel that I can use, right? JPEG is really good for photographs like the one I just used because it's a lossy format, which means the image's original information is lost, right? But we have a close approximation to what it would look like when we first took the photograph. So JPEG is a good size. There's also other ones, older ones, like TIFF, T-I-F-F. I would rather not you use that. That's a massive image size. It'll take you forever to load, and it's really not web compatible, right? The 3 big ones are GIF, PNG, and JPEG, and more often than not, we gravitate towards PNG these days, PNG, for non-pictures, for example, for buttons, custom graphics, and so on, icons, that kind of thing, we use PNGs, right? And for pictures, images, that kind of stuff, we use JPEGs, right? Those are the ways we do things. And we use both those two things, we move from one to the other. All right, and I kind of talked about that. There's also this other format, WebP, right? Not as popular these days yet, not supported across browser. And if you wanted to find out how it's supported, you can always go to Can I Use, if I go to caniuse.com, and if I wanted to see WebP, so if I go WebP, as an example, WebP image format, you can see what browsers support right now, and it's not really that supported. In fact, if anything, it's only got 65% support, and mostly from Chrome, right? If you notice, all the other browsers, Firefox, Edge, IE, Safari, well, a little bit of Opera too, but who uses poor Opera these days, right? So at the end of the day, it's just Chrome mostly that supports it, plus a series of Chrome browsers on Android machines, right? So not a lot of support out there, so I don't recommend, right, to use it. But it's the new standard, and the great thing is it gives both lossy and lossless compression, so it's good, as well as animation and alpha transparency. It does everything that the PNG and the JPEG does, all wrapped into one. That's kind of another one. And the other one is SVG, which we're going to talk about in a second. And if I was going to look and see what SVG images are, they're more complex than everything else. So if I go SVG, if I look what those things are, they're called scalable vector graphics, and they're really good. They're XML based, so even though it looks like a graphic, it's actually got a series of XML on the back end to program the image. So it's actually an image that's been created, right, through XML, which is actually a very good way to scale up. So if you have a SVG image and it's great scalable, it goes well with desktop as well as tablet and mobile. So SVG images are on the rise, and we use them a lot when we need to have some kind of scalable behavior, right? Yeah.
So that's the web answer to EPS now?
Correct. Yes.
I have a question. Sometimes when I go on websites, I see like an image in the background, but it's like a light image. So I like you put text over it.
Correct.
How did you get that?
We can do that. We can create a lighter image by creating a transparency. We can use a transparency channel. So we say, instead of, when I say transparency, think about an image. When we first look at an image, I'm looking at you. My eye is rendering the image of you through the, through my, the way my eye works. In the back end, we have a, it hits the back of my eye, and it flips around and everything else. But I'm seeing you as opaque. I can't see through you right now, right? If you're partly transparent, it means I can partly see through you, right? So I can add transparency to any image, right? Or actually, what we want to talk about is on the web world, it's called opacity. What's my opacity? If my opacity is 100%, you're fully opaque. I can't see through you. If I reduce it to 80%, that means you're 20% transparent. So transparency and opacity are opposites of one another, right? Opacity It's how solid you are. Transparency is how transparent you are. If I say you're 100% transparent, that means your opacity is 0%, right? You're not opaque at all. I can look right through you. You're invisible, in fact, right? Okay, we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get towards CSS. But what you do is you use CSS to take a regular image and fade it out in the background by increasing its opacity. So you go from, decreasing its opacity from 100 to 60 or 50 or 40. And now it's 50% transparent. You can see in the background. That's how you do it. But good question. Okay, let's get back to this. So again, we have these different image formats, color. There's different kinds of ping images. It ranges from ping 8 to ping 24. Again, it just means that they're more complex. They have more colors. I sometimes say to my wife, you know, she asks me, she says, honey, what do you think this looks like? Do you like my color of my dress? I said, honey, I'm a guy. I only see it in 16 colors, right? I know it's a computer joke, but the thing is, at the end of the day, right, that's how it used to be. We used to have only 16 color palette available to us at one point when we were, you know, back in the day when we had, you know, pixel games, right? That's how it used to be. Eventually, it moved in from a 16-bit color, right, which we had 256 colors, to 32-bit color, which we have 65,556 colors, right? So it's like 65,000 colors with 32-bit. Now we're moving into higher resolution colors where we have millions of colors, right? And once you move into 64-bit or higher, millions of colors, you know, you get to the color variations that make it look very realistic. Okay, so again, we move from ping 8, which is a lower resolution color, only 256 colors it supports, to ping 24, which is, again, millions of colors. Okay. We talked about sizes and dimensions. I highly recommend you make your icons and your logos, you rescale them outside of your web pages. Don't use the web page controls, like, for example, HTML and CSS, to rescale your stuff unless it's absolutely necessary. Because, like you said before, right, when we load up our page, we actually load the real image and then rescale after. That's really bad, right? Same thing for video games. If I was going to make a video game character, I always want to rescale my video game to the exact size I need, the character, the sprite image, the exact size I need. I don't want to use the CPU to do it for me in real time. That's bad. It takes up CPU cycles, loads a lot slower. So you want to do that after. So there's a bit of prep when you do a website, when you add images. You want to take care of your images outside of the web page and then add them in their proper sizes, right? That way you have control. We're going to talk about this a lot. CSS and the way we do you know, prep for our website allows us to have more control, and that's what it's all around. I want control over my website. I'm a control freak, right? When it comes to my website, just like print, I want to control everything that's on the web page. I want to control. But not to say that it can't be done within. And we just talked about transparency, what that is, image transparency. A lot, again, sometimes what we do is we make a transparent image. We make these images transparent outside of the website. We don't let CSS do it for us, especially if it's a large image. If we have a large image, we may want to make it transparent already as a solid image. That's what it is. It's a transparent image. And we use our tools outside, like Fireworks or Photoshop, to make it semi-transparent and then save it and then load that image in without any calculations to do it in real time, right? So, but what we just talked about, transparency, allows us to see through or partly see through the image. I've already talked about that. Again, ping 32, the more we go higher and higher with these numbers means millions and millions of colors. I'm not going to go through there. Let's keep going. Animation. There's a few ways to do animation, and we see that on the websites a lot. Some people think it's kind of gauche, eh? Like, you know, it's kind of like, it's not cool anymore. It's not la mode, right? To see animation on the website. And the reason for it is because things are moving on the website, and it might distract you from seeing the real stuff. Like, if you want to look at the content on the website, it's really important. And sometimes people say to me, Tom, I want it sexy. Give it to me sexy. I want a site that moves and flashes and blah, blah. And that's okay for a while, but if your visitor keeps returning back to that website, it becomes highly annoying to see something that pops out at you, or pop-ups that come at you and get you to sign up, or those kind of things, right? Animation can be that bad sometimes, where you might see something and you're like, okay, that's overdone. Simple animation, or animation that is subtle, is good. Originally, we used to do animation with things like Flash, right? But now, you know, you might be hearing this thing that Flash is dead. Flash the format that's been used on the web for a while, it doesn't have support in a lot of iOS devices. For example, on iPhone and tablets, like the iPad, it doesn't have support. Some other places support it, but Flash in general, we're moving away from that, and we're going to an HTML5 animation perspective. And we're using CSS to do that and JavaScript for the most part. And we're using JavaScript to target something like an HTML5 canvas to do your animations. You're actually doing page flipping animation right in your canvas in HTML5. All right? So I'm just mentioning it to you. We're not going to really cover it here in this course because it's a little bit advanced. All right. We talked about getting image. I just got one from the internet. But you can also go to these places like to get stock photos. And if I was to look really quickly to see where I can get my stock photos, I can just type in stock photos, right, or stock images. And there's a bunch of stuff, a bunch of places you can get things from. Like if I just type it in Google, I can get it from Adobe. I can get it from Shutterstock, very, very popular one, Getty Images, iStock Photo. There's all kinds of places where you can buy stock photos that you can use in your, within your design. Please avoid the temptation to steal images from the website and include other websites and include them in your own. That's a bad thing. Imagine if you had your websites and you spent money on a photographer or a team of photographers to come in and photograph your products and services or whatever, and then someone with the same kind of business stole your stuff. You'd be bad, right? Well, it's the same thing. You can get in trouble if they find out that you use somebody else's images without permission, right, in your website. You can get in trouble, and you know, they might ask you to take it down, and they could go into from a legal perspective, they can go come at you, right? So please don't do that. Either create them yourselves. If you're going to be a web developer, get a photographer to do it for you, and/or use stock images. You can pay the royalty free, or they pay royalties when you pay for these images. They pay the royalties to the people who made them, and they look really good, and they have different formats. So you can subscribe to one of these services like iStock Photo or Shutterstock or whatever that has these images, and there's many, many others that will allow you to download these stock photos. Okay, so that's that piece. I'm not going to go into that. We talked about an image editor. I'm not going to go into details about how to do kind of the image editing, because that's kind of out of scope for our course. I've been using Fireworks because that's what's common to me, right? The book mentions, I was surprised when I saw the book mentioning Fireworks. I'm like, hey, you know, they agree with me. And it's true. And for many years, Fireworks was the de facto standard for creating simple web images and all that kind of stuff. But now, again, like it's been waning, and Adobe has kind of removed support from it from Adobe CC, which is totally cool. They keep the Adobe CS6 version anyway, and they're not going to make a new one. So that's really it for images. They really don't go into detail. We talked about a couple things, though. For example, you can also, in this example of the code, right, you can use width and height parameters right here in your image tag as attributes. Again, you can do it, but I always tell you guys, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And this is just like I said, I don't believe you should use width and height to specify an image size. I would recommend for you that you'd rather use things like the actual image and then scale it with CSS if you need to. For example, if you're moving from desktop to mobile, you may want to use a responsive design framework to rescale them or swap the image out. That might be better. So let's say you're going from a desktop image and it can hold 300 by 500 images, as an example, but then you go to mobile, it's too big, then you swap it out when it comes to mobile, and there's ways of doing that with code. It's better than this, right? So I don't recommend it. It's there, but I won't do it with you, okay? And the same thing goes with Retina displays. A lot of times Retina displays will display things a lot blurrier because the image isn't high resolution enough, right? So make sure you specify the image size. Okay, so that's really it from an images perspective. And the next PowerPoint, which I'm not going to read to you, talks about links. We've already handled links, you know, from before. I just put it up there as a reference card because you guys should know how to do links by now. And if you look at the website, let me just go up here, look at the website for a second. And here it is, right? This href, right, is a link. That's what it looks like, right? So if I want to make a link to another place, here's another href. Whenever I have href with an anchor tag, I have a link. The only thing that's different that we may talk about a little bit more is links to a specific article. So if I want to link to a specific article, I'm going to create another list item here for a second really quickly. And I want to go to my main content. So let's say I'm going to kind of copy this in. Okay. Let's go back in here again and do it the right way. Before I let you guys go, give me one more minute. I know we're running a little bit long. If I want to go to main content, I can make a main content link. Here's my link to main content. And instead of linking right here, I can create an ID, right? So let's say I'm going to create an ID with a tag of main content, right? So if I just do one of these, main content, then I can link to it. Once I have an ID for the main content, if I click on this link, I can specify with the hashtag in front of it, main content, right? And what this it'll do is it'll actually link, take me from this top right down here. Now, right now they're in the same page, but if I was to add an additional content in the middle, like additional images or whatever, it'll jump right to there. So just as an example to handle that, let's add in an image one more time, right, of our source file, which is assets, right, the big image. So you can see what I'm talking about. And let's go images. We'll give you the big one, or maybe the smaller one, this the middle one. There we go. Okay, so I'm adding this image in there. Let's take a look, right? So to skip over that, I want to go right to my content, right? So I'm going to go back to this image. There it is, and refresh, right? If you notice, I got this other image here. Well, I want to get right to my content. Well, if I click main content, bam, it'll pull it up. All right, so you can link outside of your page, external links, or you can link inside your page with internal links. And the way you do that, of course, is to use the hashtag in front of your the ID name. So here's my ID name, main content, and I'm just using the hashtag to represent an ID, and main content for the name of my ID, and it takes me right there. All right. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm going to update this to GitHub. Please finish your lab by Tuesday, and your assignment's due in 2 weeks. But the rest of your assignments will be marked next week. So
You're
next
just looking for the link in
the link of your live session for your lab. Okay, guys, see you later.
I sent you as a comment.
How do I edit on my GitHub this stuff?
Just a minute, and let me just shut down this thing for a second. You're being recorded. Hey, see you next time.